She thought she was rescuing 4 helpless puppies abandoned in the woods. But 4 months later, a single sentence from the vet shattered everything she believed. These weren't dogs at all. What she had raised, fed, and loved were something far more powerful and far more dangerous. The truth changed her life forever. She hadn't planned to take the long trail that afternoon, but something about the quiet stretch of woods called to her. The air was cool, the leaves soft under her boots, and the world felt unusually still. Halfway down the path, she froze. A faint, almost fragile whimper drifted from the underbrush. She stepped closer, gently pushing aside branches until she spotted a small cardboard box tucked between the roots of an old oak. Her heart tightened. Inside, 4 tiny black newborns lay huddled together, trembling and nearly silent. Their eyes were closed, their breaths weak, their bodies impossibly small. She looked around for any sign of the mother, but the forest answered with silence. Someone had left them here, alone. Her chest ached. She couldn't just walk away. She knew instantly what she had to do. The moment she carried the tiny newborns into her home, the reality of her decision settled on her shoulders. They were colder than she expected, their little bodies trembling uncontrollably. She warmed towels in the dryer, wrapping each one carefully, whispering soft reassurances they were too young to understand. When she offered the formula, they struggled at first, their weak mouths barely latching, but slowly they drank. Tiny gulps of determination keeping them alive. She stayed awake long into the night, afraid their breathing might fade if she looked away. Each hour she checked on them, adjusting blankets, rubbing their backs, encouraging them to eat again. Exhausted but determined, she felt a fragile hope building. Somehow, these helpless creatures already needed her by the end of the second week. She realized these puppies weren't growing like any dog she had ever raised. Their tiny bodies strengthened at an astonishing pace. They opened their eyes earlier than expected, revealing dark, alert stares that seemed to take in everything at once. Their teeth appeared unusually fast, sharp little points that surprised her the first time one nipped her finger during feeding. Soon, their playful energy became something far more intense. They didn't just trot, they bounded. They climbed onto furniture with impossible balance, slipping through gaps no normal puppy could manage. At night, instead of the soft yips she anticipated, they produced eerie, wavering sounds that almost resembled distant howls. Even their behavior toward each other felt different. They moved as a unit, sleeping in a tight pile, eating shoulder to shoulder, and following her with synchronized steps that made her pause more than once. Neighbors who caught glimpses over the fence made quiet comments about their unusual appearance. Wondering aloud if they were some rare breed, she laughed it off each time. But a small knot of curiosity began to form in her chest. Something about them didn't feel entirely ordinary. Despite the strange behavior, her affection for them grew deeper each day. They followed her everywhere, for shadows padding softly behind her as she moved from room to room. Each one developed a distinct personality, one bold, one gentle, one curious, one fiercely protective. When she sat on the floor, they piled into her lap, nuzzling into her arms as if they belonged nowhere else. She found herself talking to them, laughing at their attempts to mimic her expressions, feeling comfort simply from their presence. Somehow, without meaning to, she had become their entire world, and they had quietly become hers. 4 months passed, and the tiny newborns she once cradled in warm towels had transformed into lean, powerful creatures with sleek black coats and piercing amber eyes. Their presence filled the house, silent, watchful, strangely regal. Neighbors no longer asked what breed they were. Instead, they kept a cautious distance whenever one of them let out a long, haunting howl that echoed across the yard. One morning, as she prepared their food, she noticed one of them limping, its paw held awkwardly off the ground. Concern tightened her chest. They were strong, but still young. She couldn't risk ignoring an injury. After a moment of hesitation, she made a decision she had avoided for months. She retrieved the old carrier from the closet, coaxed the injured one inside, and somehow managed to load the other 3 into the car. She started the engine. She felt a strange uneasiness settle over her. Something about today felt different, dangerously different, the moment she stepped into the clinic. The receptionist's cheerful smile faltered as the 4 puppies trotted beside her. their movements too coordinated, their eyes too sharp. She brushed it off and took a seat, gently stroking the injured one's back while the others sat protectively around her feet. When the vet finally called her in, she felt a brief wave of relief, until she saw his expression change as he froze in the doorway, eyes widening ever so slightly as he took in the animals before him. "How long have you had them?" he asked quietly, his voice suddenly cautious. "Since they were newborns," she replied, confusion creeping into her tone as he approached slowly, examining them one by one. He checked their teeth, their paws, the shape of their skulls. With every detail he observed, his frown deepened. Without a word, he excused himself and stepped out of the room. Minutes passed. She could hear muffled voices outside, urgent, tense. Her stomach tightened. When he returned, he closed the door behind him and met her eyes with a seriousness she wasn't prepared for. "These aren't dogs," he said, lowering his voice. "They're wolf pups." The words struck her like a blow, stunning, impossible, terrifying. For a long moment, she simply stared at the vet, waiting for him to take it back, to say he misspoke, that there was some other explanation. But his expression stayed firm, filled with concern rather than doubt. He gently explained the laws, the risks, the danger of keeping wild animals, especially as they matured. "Wolves," he said, "were not meant to live in homes. Their instincts, strength, and territorial nature could become unpredictable." The words blurred together as fear crept into her chest. She looked down at the 4 pups sitting close to her, sensing her distress. One pressed its nose against her knee, letting out a soft whine. Another nudged her hand as if to reassure her. "How am I supposed to give them up?" she whispered, her voice breaking. She had fed them, protected them, stayed awake night after night to keep them alive. They trusted her, belonged to her. But the vet's quiet voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. "If you love them," he said gently, "you have to do what's safest for them and for you." Her heart cracked. She knew he was right. But knowing didn't make the choice any less devastating. The vet placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and assured her he wouldn't leave her to face this alone. Within an hour, he had contacted a licensed wolf sanctuary known for rescuing abandoned or injured wildlife. When the sanctuary team arrived, she felt her heart climb into her throat. They were calm, experienced, and spoke softly as they observed the pups, admiration flickering in their eyes. "These 4 are strong," one of them said, "and incredibly bonded to you." Their words eased her trembling just a little. The team explained that the wolves would be raised safely, with open land to roam and specialists who understood their instincts. Then, to her surprise, they offered her visitation rights. "They know you as family," the handler said. "That bond matters." As the wolves were gently guided into secure carriers, they looked back at her, whining softly. She touched each crate with shaking hands. Whispering goodbye. It wasn't the ending she wanted, but it was the one they needed. 6 months later, she stood at the sanctuary gates, her heart pounding as a handler led her toward a wide, open clearing. She wondered if they would remember her, or if time had erased the bond they once shared. But the moment the wolves spotted her, everything became clear. All 4 sprinted across the grass with breathtaking speed, their powerful bodies moving in perfect harmony. They circled her, nuzzling her hands, pressing their heads against her legs, whining with unmistakable recognition. The handler watched in amazement. "They never react like this," he said softly. "They know exactly who you are." As she watched the wolves roam freely across the sanctuary grounds, a deep sense of peace settled over her. She realized their journey together had never been about ownership. It had been about protection, trust, and fate. She hadn't just rescued 4 helpless newborns. She had given them a chance to become what they were meant to be. Driving home, she felt the bittersweet weight of goodbye, but also a powerful gratitude. The wolves had changed her life, teaching her that love sometimes means letting go, and in her heart, she knew their bond would never fade.